TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop, come on, bring it higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop.
The host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and he's back. Lou Finocchiaro at GAMB Lou on Twitter. Go follow him immediately. It's fight nights, UFC Fight Night back in Las Vegas, the Apex, the 2025 debut. Psych, so glad that we got Lou back and we can talk some Octagon here, where I get to learn from the professor himself, Mr. Lou. So sit back, relax, enjoy the fights. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud partners and sponsorships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download that app. It is free. Atlanta Steaks and Seafood. Mr. Terry Smith, hope you had a good surgery. We'll get you back the start of next week. Head on over to Facebook. Follow Terry Smith. While you're there, head on over to atlantasteaksandseafood.com. Use the promo code STEAKS10 and get 10% off your whole order there. Take a look at his subscription plan. 4 different packages. Start 2025 off right. And that's with Atlanta Steaks and Seafood. And last but never least, Viva Tequila Seltzer. 6 flavors, 2 new ones. Lemon, and the East Coast is cuckoo for coconut. Without further ado, Mr. Lou Finocchiaro. Afternoon, Lou.
Afternoon, Jeffrey. Couple things. First of all, I couldn't see myself while you were talking, but I should have known that our great producer Elijah was all over it and was in full mental control. So that's good. Second thing, I just want to say now, this is the first event in 25. You and I got together in July, I think, of last year. And so we just had kind of a feeling out process for 5 or 6 months. And now we're going to get what I hope will be a full year together, a full 44 or 46 UFC events through the year. And I really look forward to that because I want to kind of keep track of what we do, what we talk about. I want to be responsible for offering actionable information for these fine listeners. And I just want to say, thanks so much for having me back. I really look forward to this full year.
Well, we couldn't be happier. It's tough. UFC, I was in it early in its infancy stages and then kind of faded to the right. I've had some guests come on periodically, always looking for someone, not just to talk about the UFC, but to talk, teach, and educate. And I found exactly someone that thinks the same way that we do, and we couldn't be happier to have you on board as well, Lou.
Thank you so much.
Before we dig into the fights here, we do have some sporting events that are also happening this weekend. We have the Final Four in college football, 1 game kicking off tonight. Currently, as we speak, we sit here at taping. Notre Dame 1.5 point favorites. Against Penn State. And then tomorrow, of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes, 5.5-point favorites against Texas. The two winners will clash. I think it's on the 20th, that Monday there. Any thoughts on either one of those games? Or do you have a rooting interest on the Final Four? Who you might be cheering on, Lou?
Jeffrey, I try and stay in my lane, and I'm really happy I do, because I think that to try and be a college football handicapper in this day and age with all this that's going on would be maddening. And I'm really glad I don't do it. And so to answer your question, I'm L7, baby. That's a square. I got no clue. Here's what I will say. My brother went to Notre Dame. The president of Notre Dame for the last 20 some years is Reverend John Jenkins. Grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. His three brothers are my best friends growing up. So clearly I have a partiality to Notre Dame, and I'll be wanting my brother, who's its birthday today, to have Notre Dame win on his birthday with the Jenkins boys and everything else. So I lean surely to Notre Dame, but I can't offer anybody any kind of over-under advice or side advice or anything like that. Ohio State and Texas, you know, how long are we going to believe that Ohio State is what they're showing us? I don't know. But I'll kind of tune into the games and keep an eye, but no bets for me. I'll watch.
We'll go to the weekend. The NFL, Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions get a well-deserved week off. I think by the time Patrick Mahomes steps onto the field, they'll have like 30 days off. So they'll be well rested. They'll be ready to go. The Detroit Lions desperately hadn't had a week off, Lou, till since week 5. We'll be getting hopefully some more healthy bodies back. Both the 1 seeds. This weekend, some big favorites. The Ravens, of course, big favorites against the Steelers. The Bills against the Broncos. Some closer games there. How about in the NFL? Is there anyone this weekend that you got your eye on?
I like the under in the Packer game. I bet it earlier in the week. I think that we'll see more defense there than one thinks. And maybe I'll back that up and I'll say maybe the offenses won't be quite as in sync as we would normally see with two quarterbacks that have been or could be playing less than 100%. I'll say it like that. Two good, solid playoff teams. I think also that Houston's experience is not being regarded. And I think that I was almost going to say San Diego. I think that the Chargers, as great a season as it's been, except for their quarterback, who remembers that bitter 31-point lead in Jacksonville and let it slip away, except for that, I think the Chargers are way too far ahead of schedule and biting off more than they can chew in Houston. I know I'm not the biggest trend guy, and this is straight up, but wild card home dogs are 29-1 straight up. So I got a home dog in Houston getting 3 points, and I got a good coach, a good D, and an offensive line should play on Friday night for high school, not in the pros. And so despite that, I think that my two looks will be Houston, the under in the Green Bay game. And when we get to later Sunday games, I'm not really that far yet. What will help me is the tsunami wave of people that have been betting the college game, then tomorrow's college game, then the early football game, ba-boom, ba-boom. They just keep rolling. And there'll be games that are the Monday night game that might be here that I'll be at. And the Sunday night game that will be affected more during Saturday and late Saturday than now, because people aren't looking that far ahead now, maybe just some sharps. So I'll be active in those late games. I'm just not really able to tell you how and why. I will say this. Sam Darnold brought the Vikings to 14-2. And he didn't forget how to play football just because he had a stinker of a game last week. I'll tell it to you like this. If you're a fantasy guy or you want to bet player props, I bet Darnold 3 or more touchdowns. He's going to absolutely go off.
Last question in the NFL. If you had Biff's Almanac, or who do you think February 9th? Just you don't have to have monies or anything on it. Who are you either rooting for, or who do you think will be in this year's Super Bowl?
Yeah, I released exactas earlier in the week. Kansas City and Philly was like a plus, I think 950. Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, Philly, Buffalo, Detroit. People shopping for price, Minnesota, Green Bay, Houston, forget about it. Forget about it. The only possible team that can beat Kansas City at home will be a toughened up Buffalo team. Forget about Baltimore. That's one man's opinion. And on the NFC side, I just think Detroit's way too strong to go. Somebody now they finally got their rest. They're going to have Montgomery back. This coach seems to be a little bit. This coach is very set in his ways, and the team responds to it and is responding to it, and they may not be done. This coach won't rest until they kick that door in and win their Super Bowl that they didn't get last year, and I think they're going to be hard to beat at home. I mean, Detroit. So I'm going to tell you, Detroit and Kansas City.
I like where your eyes are.
Chalk McChalkerson.
Shout out to Slim Shady, Mr. Shady. Thank you so much for joining us here. As we get into UFC, the debut of 2025, a year, I don't want to say to forget, 2024 in the UFC's favorites, 70.5%, which for you and I in our lanes is it's tough to swallow, as we're always trying to find some value, some age. Not that we don't bet favorites, but again, we usually can find something in the underdogs there. Give us a quick assumption of the 2024 year in review for the UFC in whole. 70.5% favorites.
Yeah, a typical year in the UFC is 62 to 64, 63 and a half-ish. And with that, my rhythm was, quite set. In fact, in 2022, I made the same amount of bets I made in 2023. The difference in profit was a 20% ROI against a -2 this year. I actually lost a little money on the year in the UFC this year. I attribute it to that 70.5%. Now, if chalk runs 70.5% again this year, I think I will be able to do better, because by about a third of the way into the year, I will realize that the regression that I think that I'm about to find, or that I expect to see, it may not come. And maybe this is sharper bookmakers, sharper bettors, and this is how it's going to run. So I will react, but not just yet. I'm going to stick to what I do. I'm going to trust my process, but I'm going to be a little more conservative this year with my clients. Starting out, instead of 5 or 6 wagers, we're probably going to just do 4, and a couple of them might be half units. And I'll do some things that we'll do here and share here to try and derive value while playing in a conservative nature, and see if I can build a little lead until I get the rhythm of what this year might be. So I'm going to treat it with respect, but I'm not going to change too much just yet.
Well, I'd love to hear that. We're in the Apex, Las Vegas. As you like to say, not many fans in the stands. The smaller cages here. The main event, DERN versus RIBAS. The rematch there. We will obviously get into 4 fights that you're going to break down right here. The first one here, I have DraftKings pulled up now. Thiago Moises versus Trey Ogden. Currently, right now on DraftKings, Moises -170, Ogden +142, over 2.5 Lou rounds -298.
Yeah, I think this has a chance to be one of the more competitive fights on the card, to be quite honest with you. Ogden feels a little disrespected in this fight. He is 35, but he's going to be 2 inches taller. He has decent wins. Lost a fight to a kid named Mata that he probably shouldn't have. He'll have a 2-inch reach advantage. He has these guys. There's a little bit of story with these guys because Ogden is from Missouri and trained there with his good friend Grant Dawson for many years. Grant Dawson, however, after some things happened with the coach in Missouri that we don't need to get into at this particular juncture, Dawson went to Florida, and in Florida, he became teammates with Moises. So he clearly has been, for the last 2 years, teammates with Moises, and now and Moises is now fighting Ogden, Dawson's old buddy. Okay, so and they worked out together in Missouri. So Ogden's a little out of joint because of that, and it's just that's the way the fight game goes. But I think that adds a little fuel to his fire. And while Moises will be the faster, younger, maybe even quicker fighter, this has a chance to be an extremely close fight. I love the over in the fight, and I would maybe even go to some props. To fight goes to the distance. Let's see here. I was really what I was trying to find is if I could find a split or majority decision, because I think this will surely go to the cards. And I really think that we could get, here's a decision here. I can't find, oh, here it is right now. Fight to be, you have to go to fight props. Then this is DraftKings. Then you have to hit decision. And if you scroll down to Moises, and they don't have it listed yet. So my great idea is to take this fight to go to split or majority decision. I think you'll get a really plus price on that. And for a fight between two guys that are going to be highly competitive, where the total is currently, and now I'm going to have to just find that total for us. Excuse me. Of course, when I look for it, I don't find it. That total's 2.5 over minus 270. So they're telling us that they expect this to go to a decision, to be a competitive fight. And I really think that this has got a shot with the goofy judging, which could or could not change from 24 to 25. It was bad in 24. It was not as bad in 23. Maybe it gets better in 25. But what I'm saying is this is going to be a really good fight. It's going to be ultra close. And to be able to get a nice price, I'm expecting a plus 300 to plus 500 on that to go split or majority decision. That's an easy way to play just a little half a unit, and you'll be in it because it's going to go to decision. Then you got to sweat out your decision.
I love the thought process there. Second fight here. Let me scroll down just to, I'm going to butcher this one. I'm going to just say Suriano and Medic. Medic right now, minus 218. Suriano, plus 180. Over 1.5, Lou, is minus 175, and that's on DraftKings.
Yeah, now this fight kicks off the main event, and rightfully so, because it's going to be these guys both bang. Neither one really is overly wrestled up, although Soriano has more wrestling game than the Alaskan Medic. It's actually Medich, but he goes by the doctor, so he's been called Medic his whole life, as you can tell. Anyway, Medic, 6'1", 2 inches taller, both 170, both lefties. That's going to make this, that throws lightning into a barrel of gasoline, because two lefties in a boxing match makes it real odd. Two lefties in a kickboxing match or in a MMA match makes it very, very odd, because you're coming at each other with different legs, different kicks, different power hands, and it just makes for awkwardness. And that, to me, translates into opportunity. Soriano's going to have a slight reach, but to me, the story of this fight is Soriano used to fight at 85 and has dropped to 170. Medic used to fight at 55, but he needs to fight at 170 because he's that big, and he couldn't, and he was being compromised, making too aggressive of a cut. So Soriano, though shorter, is going to be the thicker, heavier-handed, more powerful striker who is absolutely going to be able to withstand the Medic power. Medic will have good kicks and strikes, but he's a little more accumulation, does it with volume and over time, not necessarily one punch power. And so where I'm going here is on that 1.5, and it's minus 175, should be minus 275, because I don't think Soriano can catch up with the fast Medic in a round and a half. And I know, or I feel strongly that Medic is not going to be able to flush Soriano before 1.5. So I see this fight going a ways. Maybe you use that in some kind of a parlay piece. Maybe you use the fight starts round 3 where you get maybe a minus 125 or so. But this fight goes, I don't think either guy's going to knock the other guy out until maybe late in the third, if at all.
Our third fight, let me go right up to our card here. All right, I'll give you the pronunciation of Santiago. Is it Ponzinibbio?
Santiago Ponzinibbio. He's a Sicilian, grew up in Argentina, fights out of Argentina. And 4.5 years ago, he was one step away from being competing for the championship, which I think he could have won and ruled at. He's now 38. He's been in wars over the last 5 or so fights. Most have not gone his way, but he's fought a real high caliber quality opponent. Ponzinibbio is ultra strong, ultra powerful, ultra proud, but he's a little bit slower at 38. He can take some damage. He could be more defensive, but he's a passionate Sicilian fighter fighting out of Argentina. Now we take on this Rasta man that comes from Guyana, Charlton Harris, and Harris is somewhat limited on his defense especially, but he's real determined. He's got a granite jaw. I mean, you could swing away and hit this guy in the head with a baseball bat, and he may not even blink at you. He's durable, forward pressing, and he's going to take the fight to Ponzinibbio. This could be like those two rams on the side of the mountain that measure each other up and then run right at each other. So this is going to be a great fight as well for the co-main event. 170 pounders, all kinds of fireworks. Harris opened to minus 156, and now he's an underdog. I think Ponzinibbio is getting a lot of love for his name, but he just may be 1 or 2 fights too late. And sometimes it can get to you quick. I think I give the edge to Harris here.
Yeah, and currently on DraftKings right now, Ponzinibbio minus 142. You can get Harris at plus 120. Over 2.5. This is the first one that we've broken down. Plus 114. The under 2.5 minus 145. So this is the first fight that we've broken down. They don't expect to get to the cards, Lou.
Somebody gots to go.
The main event, the rematch. A great fight. I think if I remember correctly, 2019 was when they fought, and that's DERN versus RIBAS. Currently, right now on DraftKings, RIBAS minus 192, Mackenzie DERN plus 160, over 4.5, minus 220, Lou.
Excuse me, please. Why are they rematching here? What good is this for RIBAS? Okay, so DERN, her father is a world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu savant, practitioner, fighter, and dad that taught his daughter everything. When DERN first fought RIBAS in 19, RIBAS was in her second UFC fight, young, green, but capable. DERN had a baby in April, was fighting RIBAS in October. Whenever a woman has a baby in the UFC, if she don't give it a year off, she's a fade. and she's a winning fade. It's foolproof. They can't rush back too quick. I remember this because I remember vomiting all over Ribas in bets because I knew DERN had come back too quick from pregnancy, number one. Number two, she had a terrible history of not being able to make the weight, especially as a younger fighter, because as a younger fighter, she worked out and trained here at the MMA lab in Phoenix. I knew the culture there. I know the culture there. And I was aware that she's a young person living life. And sometimes she was more caught up in social life. She's a beautiful young lady. She's more caught up in social life than hitting the gym sometimes. And so with that history, I knew Ribas was live, and she was. And DERN was the favorite then. Now, flash forward 5 years, both these gals have totally improved. Ribas fast on her feet, deft with her defense. She can grapple very well. She's probably a black belt in BJJ, very trained, very well-rounded. Her hand, she can't knock out a mouse, but she'll put volume on you and accrue points. Absolute decision fighter, just like any other 115-pound woman. Ribas has been bouncing, though, between 25 and 15. Her last fight was 125. The one before, 115. She bounces between weight classes quite a bit. I don't know that I really like that. But Ribas knows that at ranked number 6, if she can beat number 3 DERN, she can steal her thunder, and that's the motivation for her to fight her. Meanwhile, I think DERN is a much changed fighter from back then. She isn't pregnant this time. She hasn't had trouble cutting weight. She's back with Jason Perillo, her boxing coach. She surely will be giving up footwork, speed, and volume in her striking to Ribas. But with that, she'll have an abundance more of power, and she can hurt Ribas with her power. Furthermore, because Ribas will be fighting at the smaller size, I see DERN being able to take her to the ground. And if Ribas acquiesces and allows this fight to go to the floor, DERN will submit her. And so that's how DERN or this fight could not go the distance. I'm high on DERN as an underdog. We caught her earlier in the week at a different price than now, but anything a plus 150 or over on DERN, I think is a worthy consideration because she's going to come in and try and correct the wrong that was some years ago. And I think she's a different class opponent than Ribas.
Well, again, 2025, the debut at the Apex. What better way to start the year? Good card there. And if I'm looking at the schedule correctly, next week, UFC 311. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I'm trying to think of where, if that's in Florida. I don't even know where it is, but it doesn't matter where it is. It might be Saudi. Where is it?
It says Inglewood, California.
Inglewood up to no good. Okay, so it'll be California next week, which is great. That means the schedule's all the same. The key is with the fights will be much different, and we'll get way more names that most of the people listening in will now know, as opposed to maybe some of these more obscure fighters we're talking about today.
And February 1st, you were one event away. February 1st, they go to Saudi.
That's Saudi, and that'll be a killer card too. There'll be 5 events in February, so put your seatbelts on.
That the headliner there, Adesanya versus is it Imavov?
Imavov. That'll be a good fight.
The scroll has been going the whole time. Of course, everyone knows to find you on X at GAMB Lou. But as we always end this card here, Lou, what we'd like to do is give you the opportunity to talk about where they can find your work and, of course, about your website and what you have to offer.
Mondays on Twitter, I release the Sneak Teep podcast each week. It's designed for those that are interested in investing in the UFC. I don't give away shirts. There's no raffle tickets or free trips. But if you're interested in fighting and angles and what the opening line is, what it is now, and where it's going, that's your podcast. And we're flattered to get really great viewership or listenership for that. On Friday, it's the Bout Business podcast. all my final releases, those are available at gamblou.com. I'm tickled to be back here for another year, Jeff. I look forward to it, and thanks again.
I'm smiling ear to ear to get back into the octagon next week with UFC 311 at Inglewood, up to no good, as you said. And then February 1st, 5 cards. We start in the Saudi Arabia. 5 p.m., Ron Marmolevsky will be back. We're going to talk some college football and some NFL. Till then, I want to give a shout out, of course, to everyone watching and listening. Standing room only. Mr. Slim Shady himself, thank you so much for all your comments. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investor, one and only Mr. Lou Finocchiaro at GAMB Lou. We wish everyone a blessed day, and we will see everyone back at 5 o'clock. Stay tuned.